Welcome back.
So today I am now back in my humble abode, back in Mr. Singapore's domain to talk about the latest drip marketing.
Technically, I would consider this as drip marketing. Now, I know this is called Novaflare, but last time I checked, drip marketing is marketing for something that's gonna be coming in the future. A little bit of a teaser, if you will, right? So for all intents and purposes, to me, this is gonna be considered drip marketing, right? So the Novaflare drip marketing has been announced today at 12 p.m. First thing, just to get the elephant in the room out of the way, right? Just to get the elephant in the room out of the way. Okay, don't worry about this for now. Yeah, this was yesterday. I'm a little bit sad that yesterday there was no Elation MC drip marketing, because by right it should be 5-star for day 1, 5-star for day 2, and then finally this is gonna be like essentially back when RMC was announced, it was around this caliber. So unfortunately we did not get an EMC drip marketing. It is what it is, but instead for today they postponed it by 1 day to announce the Novaflare update, which is going to be seen right here for Sparkle as well as Black Swan. Now to my understanding, even though RMC was announced back in the same patch as Herda and Eglea, I think HMC was announced like a little bit later, because we didn't manage to get HMC until, if I'm not mistaken, around Boot Hill, because the first pack was for Black Swan and Sparkle, I think. I'm not too exactly sure about that, so we'll see how EMC is going to be shaping out in the future. I refuse to believe there's no such thing as an EMC, because if that actually happens, the HSR is actually going to be So today we are going to be discussing a little bit for the Novaflare on Black Swan as well as Sparkle. Now, editor, I don't think we are able to play this because it might be a little bit from DMCA. But if you can play this, throw in this clip right here.
Saki, he's just a kid! Your performance was garbage! How many times have I told you to review the goddamn score? How many times? Just keep hitting him!
God.
But he played better today than I'd ever seen before.
I'm going to go get a staff member. You played what you felt instead of what was written down! You're not going to bed until you play it right. What are you, a damn beginner? You're worthless!
Okay, welcome back. So assuming that it was actually managed to be playable right here, I think it was pretty funny that they decided to get themselves the buff for Black Swan and Sparkle first before the version 1 units, which honestly I was quite surprised that they just decided to skip the entirety of my greatest of all time unit, the Scylla version 1.0 DPS, right? So I already given my thoughts a little bit roughly 2 hours ago. So Sparkle and Black Swan's buff. Now personally for me, between these two, I think it is a pretty good choice of direction as to the unit that actually gets buffed over here, because buffing a Harmony is technically buffing more than just one unit. Because if you were to buff Sparkle, it is pretty much a direct buff to Imbibitor Lune, which pretty much always just Sparkle in the first place. And then I can kind of just view this as them buffing E2 And on top of that, if I want to use Sparkle with like other DPS, right? If I want to use her with like QQ, if I want to use her with Archer, all that kind of stuff, that can also be 100% doable. So I think personally taking Sparkle as a buff is definitely a right candidate, especially considering the fact that she has been a little bit cooked for a very long time, ever since the launch of Trippy back in 28th of December 2024. Breaking news, Sparkle found dead in a ditch, and alas, after more than 1 year, because this was 2024, right? More than 1 year later, bro is finally back. Magi Dayo, right? So I'm very, very glad that Sparkle actually gets a little bit more of a spotlight. I'm looking forward to see how she's gonna be able to shape up with definitely not just the version 1 DPS, the version 3 free unit Archer, as well as how she's gonna be shaping up in the upcoming version 4 DPS, right? Whether or not she's gonna be able to work with the brand new Sparcy, or whether she's not gonna be working with the current brand new Sparcy, but she's gonna be waiting for the anniversary unit. At that point in time, who knows? So I'm just gonna be looking forward to when they reveal her kit, which is unfortunately gonna be on the 30th of Jan. Yep. it is a very, 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 very long patch of HSR 3.8. So only on the 30th of Jan is when they announced the live stream for 4.0. So we have a lot of time before that actually happens. Luckily for us, we are going to be playing Enfield, so I don't think it's going to be that long of a wait. So I'm very, very happy that Sparkle actually got a buff over here. A second unit that actually got a buff is going to be Black Swan. Personally, I think Black Swan getting a buff, I would have been okay if she didn't. Because DOT just got a pretty considerable upgrade with High Excellence. If players put Cyrene just for DOT, I think whether or not Black Swan gets this buff over here is not going to be that significant. But to be fair, a lot of DOT mains, I don't think they would have thought of going all in for Cyrene if it's only for the purpose of DOT, right? Because I've even said it for like my early access videos when it comes to like buffing Cyrene's, or rather Cyrene's buffing capabilities to like the multiple teams in version 3. DOT is like one of the least obvious, especially in a sustained setup. So assuming that DOT mains didn't get Cyrene, I think this buff is absolutely exceptional. But if you're a DOT main that wants to get them 0 cycles, you want to min-max goals for like the sustainless clears, and you actually put Cyrene just for the sake of buffing DOT, then whether or not Black Swan gets the buff of it, it's gonna be a little bit questionable, because that is gonna mean that you will end up using what, Cyrene, High Excellence, Kafka, and then Black Swan is just gonna replace that final slot. So we'll see how that goes, because Black Swan doesn't really give you the stack for Cyrene unless you went all in for the E2, which is like a little bit questionable, because I frankly don't think that E2 Cyrene is gonna be like that crazy of investment, especially just for the sake of like getting the stacks up as fast as possible. Yeah, but I think Black Swan getting a buff here, it's great for DOT mates, but I think they could have done it without Black Swan. Also, I just thought that this meme was really, really funny. So maybe this is the reason why they actually got the buff for Black Swan. I'm not going to be complaining because another generation W for DOT mates, because what I'm guessing will happen is that they might be preparing to not give DOT any love for like a very long time. Because we just got High Excellence. And indirectly, Cyrene also buffed High Excellence indirectly. I don't think they made Cyrene for the intention of just buffing DOT. But what I guess might happen is that in version 4, they are gonna be moving away from DOT for a while. So it might be like 3, 4, 5 patches of like 0 updates for DOT, just like in version 3, where we haven't gotten a single DOT update since Black Swan from 2.0. And I think it was like almost like more than 1 year until High Excellence came out. So I'm guessing that this is probably DOT's final push before we get ourselves the eventual update, maybe, I don't know, 5.0 or something, right? So I think that is gonna be the direction. That being said though, even though this unit I think is a W, this unit is kind of okay, I really hope that they will bring up more than 2 units getting buffed, because we did get 4 buffs for Novaflare in the very, very first update. So I hope that this is just going to be like the first of many. You get what I'm saying? So if they can release this buff for like the first patch, they might release more Novaflares going forward in future. Particularly, I really, really, really hope to see them buffing Scylla, because personally, this is honestly a little bit biased. I really like the way Scylla plays in a turn-based game. I think getting extra turns and having this mechanic where you get yourself the resurgence and you can stack on the additional energy, time your ultimates, and then get double resurgence back to back, I think it will be really, really nice, and it wouldn't really change anything. It will be as if them giving a buff to, let's just say for example, Jingliu. Because Jingliu, even though she got buffed, she doesn't really change that much in the grand scheme of things for the HP dealing DPS. Blade has a little bit more of a playtime in Jingliu, so whether or not she gets the buff or don't get the buff, it doesn't really matter that much. But for those players that want to play Jingliu, it is a very, very good update, because at least I think Bro can definitely still clear, right? So if Scylla can actually get a buff, I'll be very, very happy. Other than that, I don't really care about Argenti. I think Bro can die, right? I don't really care about Luocha that much. If Hue or Fu Xuan gets buffed, that will be really good. Actually, in particular, I really, really hope they buff Hue. I really hope they buff Hue, because like if we are gonna be going into a skill point economy, or like a environment which promotes the use of skill points, right? Hue actually uses a generational amount of skill points. It's just that she uses a little bit too many skill points to the point where her sustain is getting a bit of an issue. And frankly speaking, if you don't have the E1 or the S1, her kit just feels very, very feels bad, because there are a lot of things that you just can't do and just get one shot. So if Hue gets a buff on top of the current utility she provides for the attack buff and energy regeneration, I think that would be really, really nice, right? Other than that, I think generally speaking, the most important thing that I will be looking forward to over here is definitely going to be Sparkle. Out of the reasons of buffing Sparkle, right? I don't think they give her this buff just for the sake of looking backwards. Because we already know for a fact that Sparcy is a Fire Elation DPS. And the next upcoming Memory of Chaos, which is Calamity Balsam, the Environment Breach Nest, it is based on skill point economy consumption. So, personally, between these two, I really hope that Sparkle can actually get the same level of upgrade that Kafka has done for the old DOT team comp. To the point where she is almost as close to, maybe not tier 0, because to be fair, she is like a 2-year unit, but tier 0.5 would be like a really good thing. So like for example, Ranmei, right? Ranmei is probably not tier 0 in a lot of the current version 3 team comps, but she is a decent enough alternative substitute to the point where if you really don't want to go for the vertical investments, she can still get a job done. So I hope that they can bring Sparkle's utility as a version 2.0 support, Harmony support, to around that same job that Ranmei is currently doing. If you're not going to be putting for a version 4 vertical support upgrade, you can still go ahead and use Sparkle to fulfill that role. I think that will be like a super nice direction, and it will allow players to have a little bit more flexibility as well as less FOMO when it comes to, okay, do I really need the E0 S0 when it comes to vertical support cost, or can I just save it up for, let's just say like an E2 DPS, right? I want to get like the E2 final equivalent in version 4, or like the E2 Cyrene equivalent in version 4, right? So Sparkle should be there to give players the opportunity to just basically change up the way to play, and as well as just like, you know, move on without forcing themselves to getting, let's just say, like another version 4 generative support, so like for example like a Trippy, right? So that's gonna be depending on how they are gonna be seeing it. But the unfortunate thing is, if they bring Sparkle's buffs to that tier 0.5 caliber, where she also becomes closer to like what Ranmei does, but for like this brand new version, I am also a little bit fearful for the other 2 Harmony supports, namely Sunday as well as Babin. Because to be fair, E1 Trippy might still have a little bit of room to play, but Sunday and Babin, these 2 Harmony siblings, right? I think it will be a little bit hard, because like, if she's already gonna be doing that role for the generalist support, I think Babin probably can still find a little bit of play if she just goes into the field with face health. Trippy can still find a little bit of play if you still want to stick with the Remembrance flagship without, like for example, if you want to run F9 main DPS, you're probably going to be running Trippy, especially if you take out RMC to go to EMC. So I think Trippy still has a little bit of home. But the most homeless guy, if Sparkle actually becomes like that good to the point where she's going to be the generalist support, is probably going to be Sunday. Alright, I can't really think of a scenario in which I can fit Sunday into a best in slot team if Sparkle actually goes above and beyond what Bro is actually gonna be doing. Which honestly is a little bit poetic to a certain extent, because when Sunday came out, almost everyone was like, oh my god, bro, Sparkle is literally useless, especially if you put for E0 S1 Sunday, because E0 S1 Sunday literally generates you more skill points every 3 turns than E0 Sparkle. So after like, I guess at this point it's been like almost 1 year since Sunday's release, there is a potential that Sparkle might just be able to do that better than Sunday. And even worse, they are both Harmony, which means if you want to use Sunday's light cone on Sparkle, you technically can. So at that point, I'm just thinking like, for my main account, it doesn't really matter that much, but like for my free-to-play account, Sunday's pool value might actually actualize as one of my worst pool values to date in my free-to-play account. But the lucky thing is, the fact that I actually got a Sunday S1, I could pivot that into the buff Sparkle, and then I give DDD to my original team for E1 Trippy, and then whether I need to cook that up for Sparkle, that's gonna be a little bit more of a flexible option, right? So, like I mentioned, E1 Trippy, I think it's still going to be okay if you're still going to be playing the version 3 Remembrance flagship, and then you pivot RMC away, so into EMC, that's fine. For Babin, if you are like a follow-up attack main, I think that is still relatively okay, especially if you have E1. But for Sunday, I just don't really know where can I see a place for Bro anymore. So that's gonna be my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe if they buff Sparkle to only like the caliber of, let's just say, Silver Wolf, I guess Silver Wolf is not too bad of a buff, but it's not as impactful as compared to the buff that Kafka received. Because when Kafka got that buff, you basically just had to use Kaga for every single DOT team, pretty much. So if Sparkle can receive the same caliber where you have to use Sparkle for every single team that wants to use a shit ton of skill points, then what the fuck is Sunday gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So at this point, I'm just thinking like, what could happen in the future? If you have seen this list from like Sarah, I'm not sure if Sarah of the Lake actually, to be fair, I think this is probably not gonna age very well. But we also don't really know what Sunday is gonna be cooking up going forward in the future. Because nobody know that they were gonna buff Sparkle, right? But now with this context in mind, if let's say you put for Lingsha and you skipped all the break DPS for like let's just say you really just didn't put a single break DPS and you went for hyper carry Lingsha, I think this actually might be able to cook something out. But now that they are gonna be giving this buff to Sparkle, I think only time will tell if Sunday will still get a home. Maybe they give the Sunday buff next version. Because at this point, all these buffs are like purely like speculations. You will never know what's actually going to be happening until they actually reveal it's going to be happening, right? So that is pretty much going to be that for our Novaflare drip marketing update with regards to Sparkle as well as Black Swan. Hope to see them getting more than just 2. Because I think if it's just going to be 2 for the entire year, it's a little bit sad. Also, it will be quite nice if they can buff light cones as well. So that way, please dev this. Let me know what you guys in the comments below. What today is gonna be Sunday. Where is his home? Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join use code POKE. 10% off gamer subs. All the best, I got you. See you guys next time. Bye.